Hi, everybody. My name is Ichha, and today I'm going to be talking about the Developmental Systems Approach. I will be shedding light on two theories that are pivotal for organizing our thinking and understanding of this approach to individual development. So, to start off with, individual development as a concept sparks considerable debate due to the lack of consensus regarding its determinants and influences. Nevertheless, there is a unanimous acknowledgement or a consensus that development entails systematic and progressive changes over time. To start off with, I'm going to be exploring the developmental systems approach. This approach, at its simplest, talks about the relationship between nature and nurture, highlighting that they both interact and influence each other. Together, these aspects contribute to the development of every person. This approach shows us that development is complex and ever changing, shaped by many different factors. It is not fixed or a rigid process. It looks at different levels of influence and explores how they work together over time to create unique paths in human development. These paths are influenced by a mix of personal and environmental factors. Before we go any further, there are two key points to remember in this whole explanation that I have said so far. First is that nature and nurture interact with each other to play a role in development. Second, development is a dynamic and complex process involving multiple factors interacting at different levels of organization. 3. The outcome of development is ever changing and is a result of unique combinations of personal and environmental factors. Moving on to the first theory under the development systems approach that we're going to be talking about, which is the bioecological model. At its simplest, this model states that development is the result of biological and environmental influences. The bioecological model by Uri Bronfenbrenner explains how a person's development is influenced by 5 layers of their environment. Imagine it like a set of circles, as you can see here, where each circle represents a different level of influence on a person's growth. The microsystem is the innermost circle where a person has direct interactions with its immediate surroundings. This also includes the biopsychosocial traits of a person. It includes family, friends, teachers, and other close relationships. Moving on to the second layer is the mesosystem. This circle connects the different microsystems to any individual at any given moment. It explores how relationships at school might affect relationships at home, and vice versa. The third layer of the system is the exosystem. This circle shows how places where a person isn't directly involved can still have an impact on their life. It looks more specifically at how social settings like a parent's workplace or the local community can influence them. Moving on, we go to the macro system. This is the outer circle. It represents the broader culture, including societal norms, laws, and values that affect a person's development. Transcending all of them and connecting all of them together is the chronos system. This last aspect deals with how all of these interactions change over time as a person grows and as their environment changes. Before we move to the next theory, here are two things to remember when it comes to the bioecological model. There are multiple layers of influence. The bioecological model shows that development is shaped by different levels of the environment, from close relationships to larger social systems. And two, these these influences change over time. These change as people grow, as their surroundings evolve, which together affects how they develop. Moving on to probabilistic epigenesis, which is the second theory within the developmental systems approach. Probabilistic epigenesis suggests that our development isn't like following a fixed blueprint, but more like a recipe with various ingredients. Genes and the environment interact in unpredictable ways, shaping who we become. It's like cooking a dish where the outcome depends on who is cooking and how all the ingredients come together, rather than following a strict recipe. Gilbert Gottlieb is a developmental psychologist and a neuroscientist who created the idea or established the theory of probabilistic epigenesis. It suggests that four factors influence each other in both directions, to and fro, which plays a role in how people develop. A key understanding at the base of this theory is that the developmental outcome of any factor is not fixed. This is because there are so many different ways these factors can interact, making the outcomes varied and uncertain. This uncertainty is why it's called probabilistic. The four factors that lead to development and are influenced by each other are genetic activity, neural activity, behavior, and environment. This is how it works. Genetic activity, followed by neural activity, behavior, and our environment, work together holistically. They don't just go in a straight line. Instead, they fuse and create a unique response. So, if one thing changes, it can affect everything else. This is why we cannot predict exactly how somebody will develop at the moment. It depends on many interacting factors. Let's dive into each of these factors uh, in a much deeper way to understand it better. Let's start with genetic activity. It is at the base of this theory or this approach. Genetic activity includes genes and their expression. It is a blueprint for every organism. This blueprint can influence and be influenced by other factors. It is not just a one way street. Genes can affect the environment, and the environment can in turn impact gene expression. So, simply put, this factor involves our DNA and how genes can be turned on or off, depending on how much we reinforce a behavior and our situation at the time. For example, someone might have a genetic predisposition to be tall, but proper nutrition during childhood can greatly influence whether they reach that potential height or not. This is an example. The genetic activity then gives rise to neural connections. This involves the brain and the nervous system. Neural activity can be shaped by genetic factors, but also by experiences and environmental inputs. For example, learning to play a musical instrument can create new connections, which in turn can influence brain structure and functioning. It could have a role in increasing confidence, focus, or just being able to put patterns together in a better way. Moving on, we go to the behavior aspect, right? So it keeps giving rise. This includes all the actions and reactions of a person. Behavior can be influenced by both genetics and neural activity, but it can also shape those factors in return. For example, if a child grows up in a bilingual household, they might develop different language skills compared to a monolingual environment. It may even be easier for them to pick up certain things while studying, or certain, again, patterns, or it'll influence them in a different way as compared to someone who may not be exposed to those skills. Moving on even further, we go to the broadest factor encompassing physical, social, and cultural surroundings. The environment affects genetic activity, neural connections, and behavior, but it is also influenced by them as people interact with and change their surroundings. For example, a child growing up in a supportive and nurturing family environment might experience better emotional development as compared to a child who is in a more chaotic or stressful environment. So, all of these factors work together, interact together, and create all these different pathways of what a reaction could be, or what a response could be, or how a personality develops into what it is. When it comes to probabilistic epigenesis, here are two key ideas to remember. The four-factor dance. Development is a dynamic interaction between genes, brain activity, behavior, and environment. Together, they create a unique choreography that shapes who we become. The second thing is that there is no set script. This is because these factors influence each other in unpredictable ways. There is no strict blueprint for development. The outcomes are unique and constantly evolving, making each person's journey one of a kind. These are my insights from the developmental systems approach, more specifically, the bioecological model and probabilistic epigenesis.